blood on my doorstep, a dying billionaire, and the choice that made three powerful men want me dead. I'm Brooke McClellan. I saved a stranger's life during the worst blizzard in 50 years. 14 days later, 12 black SUVs surrounded my coffee shop, and the man I rescued walked through my door, no longer helpless, but dangerous. His name is Alexander Stoll. He's worth billions, and the men who tried to kill him now know I exist. This is the story of how kindness became my death sentence, and how I survived a war I never asked to fight. I never believed in fate until the night Alexander collapsed at my door. The storm had been raging for hours, the kind that buries Chicago under 6 feet of snow and makes the news call it historic. I should have been closed, should have been upstairs in my tiny apartment, safe and warm. But I stayed late because my coffee shop was dying, and every dollar mattered. Then I heard it, a sound like something heavy hitting the door. When I looked through the frosted glass, I saw him, face pale, dark coat torn and soaked with blood, one hand pressed against the wood like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His eyes met mine, gray, desperate, pleading. I made a choice in that moment. A choice that would pull me into a world of corporate sabotage, billion-dollar conspiracies, and men who kill to protect their secrets. I opened the door, and my simple life ended. The blizzard hit Chicago like God himself had given up. I was wiping down the counter for the 3rd time that hour, watching snow pile against the windows of my coffee shop like it was trying to bury us alive. The weather app said it was the worst storm in 50 years, the kind that turned highways into graveyards and made people disappear. I should have closed 2 hours ago, should have locked up, gone upstairs to my cramped apartment, and waited it out like everyone else with sense. But closing early meant losing what little money trickled in, and I couldn't afford to lose anything else. The wind screamed. Something heavy slammed against my door. I froze, rag still in my hand. Another thud, weaker this time. I moved to the window, breath fogging the glass. At first, all I saw was white, snow coming down so thick it looked solid. Then I saw him, a man, collapsed against my door, one hand pressed to the wood like he was holding himself upright through sheer stubbornness. His coat was expensive. I could tell even through the snow plastered to the black wool. But it was torn, shredded along one shoulder. And his shirt underneath, dark, soaked through, looked wrong. Too dark, too wet, blood. I should have called the cops. That's what you do when a bleeding stranger shows up at your door in the middle of a storm that's killing people. You call someone, you let them handle it. But his head lifted, just barely, and his eyes found mine through the glass. Gray, desperate, dying. I unlocked the door. The cold hit me like a fist, stealing my breath. He fell forward, and I caught him. Barely. He was heavier than he looked, all dead weight and ice. I dragged him inside, kicking the door shut behind us, and the wind scream cut off like a severed throat. "Stay with me," I said, lowering him into the nearest chair. His head lolled back, snow melted in his dark hair, dripping down a face that was too pale, too still. "Hey, look at me." His eyes opened, struggled to focus. "Please," he whispered. The word came out broken, barely there. I grabbed dish towels, pressed them against the gash along his ribs. His coat had protected him from the worst of it, but something had torn through. Not a car accident, something sharper, deliberate. "What happened to you?" He didn't answer. Just looked at me like I was the first solid thing he'd seen in hours, maybe days. "I'm Brooke," I said, keeping pressure on the wound. "And you're not dying in my coffee shop, you hear me?" His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Alexander." Then his eyes closed, and I spent the next 6 hours making sure he kept breathing. 14 days. That's how long Alexander stayed. The blizzard didn't let up for 3 days straight. By the time the plows made it to my street, we'd fallen into a rhythm that felt like we'd known each other for years instead of hours. He slept on my couch upstairs, the one with the broken spring that dug into your back if you shifted wrong. I gave him my blankets, the good pillows, tea every few hours whether he wanted it or not. He never told me what happened. Not really. Just that he'd been in the wrong place and needed to stay off the grid until things settled. I didn't push. People who show up bleeding and half frozen don't usually want to explain themselves, but he helped. Fixed my espresso machine on day 4 with nothing but a screwdriver and what looked like muscle memory. Restocked the shelves. Listened while I ranted about supply costs and landlords who raised rent faster than I could count. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his voice was careful, measured, like every word cost something. "You should expand," he said one night, both of us sitting in the dim glow of the space heater. "This place could be more. More costs money I don't have. You have vision. That's worth more." He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his eyes made my chest tighten. "Don't underestimate what you've built." On day 12, I woke up and found him standing at the window, staring out at the city like he was memorizing it, or saying goodbye. "You're leaving," I said. He turned, nodded once. "I have to." "Because of whatever happened?" "Because if I stay, they'll find me, and I won't put you in that position." I wanted to argue, wanted to ask who they were, what kind of trouble followed a man like him. But I didn't, because some part of me already knew. The expensive watch he never took off, the way he moved, too controlled, too aware. The phone call he took on day 9, when his voice turned cold enough to frost the windows. He left the next morning. No goodbye. Just a blank white business card on the counter with a handwritten note. "Thank you for saving my life." That was it. 7 days later, I was restocking mugs when the rumble started. Low, deep. The kind of sound that rattles your bones before you hear it. I walked to the window. 12 black SUVs lined the street. Doors opened in perfect synchronization. Men stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in suits that cost more than my monthly rent. They moved like soldiers, walked like they owned the block. And then he stepped out of the center vehicle. Alexander. But not the man I'd saved. Not the one who'd slept on my broken couch and fixed my espresso machine with gentle hands. This man was power, authority, the kind of presence that made the air feel heavier. He walked through my door, and every eye in the shop turned to him. "Hello, Brook," he said quietly. And I knew, right then, my life was never going to be the same. "Everyone out." Alexander didn't raise his voice. Didn't have to. The 3 customers nursing lattes at the corner tables grabbed their bags and left without a word. The door swung shut behind them, and suddenly my coffee shop felt like a cage. Marshall, the head of security, Alexander had introduced him with all the warmth of stating someone's blood type, locked the door, flipped the sign to closed. "You can't just—" I started. "I can." Alexander's gray eyes held mine. "And I am. We need to talk." "Then talk. You don't need 12 SUVs and an army for that." Something flickered across his face. Almost regret. "Yes, Brook, I do." He moved to the table where we'd sat that last night, gestured for me to join him. I stayed behind the counter. If this was some kind of power play, I wasn't playing. "The accident," he said finally. "It wasn't an accident. I figured that out when you showed up bleeding. It was sabotage, orchestrated by 3 of my business partners, men I trusted with my company, my investments, everything I've built." His jaw tightened. "Alonzo Ramirez, Rolando Chen, Kane Bishop. We were finalizing a $340 million infrastructure deal. They wanted me out, Permanently. The number hit me like cold water. 340 million. I was worried about making rent. They cut my brake lines, tampered with the GPS, made sure I'd crash on that mountain road during the storm. He leaned forward, and I saw it then. The exhaustion beneath the expensive suit, the rage he'd buried so deep it had frozen over. I survived because I'm stubborn, and because you opened your door. So what? You came here to thank me with a motorcade? I came here because they know about you now. The room went cold. What? They've been watching me, following my movements, and 7 days ago, someone leaked that I'd been seen in this neighborhood during the blizzard. Alexander's voice dropped. They know I was here, Brook, which means they know you helped me. And men like Alonzo don't leave loose ends. My hands gripped the counter. I didn't ask for this. I know. He stood, closed the distance between us in 3 strides. Which is why Marshall and his team are staying. This shop is under protection now. You're under protection. I don't need... Yes, you do. His hand covered mine on the counter. Warm, steady. I won't apologize for keeping you alive. Stick around. This is where kindness becomes dangerous and trust becomes a weapon. I pulled my hand away, hated how much I wanted to leave it there. And what do? Just let armed men camp in my coffee shop? You stay alive, Alexander said quietly, and you let me fix what I broke by walking into your life. Outside, snow started falling again. They came on a Tuesday. 2 weeks had passed since the SUVs arrived, and I'd almost gotten used to the new normal. Marshall's men rotated shifts, always 2 inside, more outside. Customers whispered but kept coming. Turns out having intimidating security makes people think your coffee is worth the trip. Alexander visited twice, both times after closing. Both times he sat at that same table and talked about everything except the 3 men who wanted him dead. Business was actually up. Not that I'd admit it to him. I was refilling the pastry case when the door opened. 2 men walked in, and every instinct I'd developed over 2 weeks screamed wrong. They wore suits, expensive ones. But something about the way they moved, slow, deliberate, scanning the room like they were cataloging exits, made my stomach drop. Marshall's guy, Colin, straightened from his position by the window. The taller one smiled. 2 wide. Coffee, black, 2. I moved to the machine, hand steady even though my pulse wasn't. Poured 2 cups, set them on the counter. $6. Alexander Stoll, the shorter one said instead of paying. He comes here? Colin was already moving, positioning himself between them and me. I don't discuss my customers, I said. We're not asking about customers. The tall one's smile never wavered. We're asking about Alexander. See? We're old friends, business partners, and we heard he's been spending time in this neighborhood. The way he said spending time made it sound like a crime. Don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. He leaned across the counter, close enough that I could see the scar along his jawline, the coldness in his eyes that had nothing to do with temperature. Pretty woman like you, running a shop like this? Alexander has a type. Plays the hero, sweeps in, makes you feel special. Then his world eats you alive. Time to leave, Colin said. His hand rested on something under his jacket. The shorter one laughed. Relax, we're just having a conversation. Conversation's over. I stepped back, grabbed my phone. Leave, or I call the cops. And tell them what? That we ordered coffee? The tall one finally put money on the counter. $100 bill. Keep the change. Consider it a tip, for discretion. They took their cups, walked to a table by the window, sat down like they had all the time in the world. Colin spoke into his wrist mic, low, urgent. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched as they drank their coffee, casual as anything, while my heart tried to break through my ribs. The tall one's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, stood, and both men walked out without another word. 3 minutes later, Alexander's SUV screeched to the curb. He came through the door like a storm, eyes finding mine immediately. What did they say? They asked about you. His expression went dark, dangerous. Alonzo? Didn't give names, but yeah, I think so. Alexander's jaw clenched. Then it started. You're moving into my penthouse. Alexander said it like he was commenting on the weather. Casual, final. I'm not going anywhere. I locked the coffee shop door, flipped the sign. Marshall's men had swept the place twice already, looking for bugs, cameras, whatever people like Alonzo planted. This is my home. This is a target. Alexander gestured to the windows, the ones facing the street, visible from a dozen angles. Your apartment is upstairs, one exit, no security. If they come back, I'll handle it. Like you handled it today? His voice was sharp. Brook, you stood up to Alonzo's men without backup, without knowing who they were. That's not brave. That's how you get killed. So what? I hide in your tower while they tear apart everything I've built? I'll protect your business. This isn't just business. The words came out hotter than I meant them. This shop is all I have. I'm not abandoning it because some rich men are playing games. Alexander went still. That dangerous kind of still where you know something's shifted, but you can't see it yet. Games, he repeated quietly. You think this is a game? I think you came into my life and brought a war I didn't ask for. You're right. He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to hold his gaze. I brought this to your door. I made you visible to men who solve problems with violence, and I will spend every resource I have keeping you alive because the alternative— His voice cracked, just barely. I've already lost people I cared about to this world. I won't lose you. The admission hung between us like broken glass. Who did you lose? He turned away, walked to the window, stared out at the street where his SUVs idled, exhaust fogging the cold air. Her name was Haley Parrott. She worked in my company, PR department, smart, ambitious, kind. His reflection in the glass looked haunted. We were close, not romantically. She was my friend, one of the few real ones I had. When the sabotage started, before the accident, when they were just laying groundwork, she found discrepancies in the financial reports, started asking questions. My stomach dropped. What happened? Car accident, single vehicle collision on a clear day, brake failure. His hands curled into fists. The police ruled it mechanical malfunction. I knew better, but I couldn't prove it, couldn't save her. Alexander, I won't make that mistake again. He turned, and the look in his eyes was raw enough to hurt. So yes, you're moving into my penthouse, not because I'm controlling, because I can't. He stopped, exhaled. Because if something happens to you, Brook, I don't know what I'll do. Outside, headlights swept across the window. Marshall's voice crackled through the radio. Sir, we have movement, 2 blocks east. Alexander's expression went cold. Pack a bag. Now. Alexander's penthouse looked like it belonged in a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. Furniture that probably cost more than my entire shop. Art on the walls that I was afraid to breathe near. Everything sharp angles and cold perfection. I hated it immediately. Guest room is down the hall, Alexander said, setting my pathetic duffel bag on the marble floor. Marshall's team monitors all entry points. You're safe here. Safe. The word felt like a lie in a place this exposed. He left for a meeting, something urgent about damage control and investor confidence, and I spent the first hour wandering the space like a caged animal. Everything was too clean, too expensive, too much like a museum, and not enough like a place anyone actually lived. The coffee in his kitchen tasted like regret. I was staring out at the city, wondering how I'd ended up here, when I heard the elevator chime. Heels clicked across the floor. Confident, deliberate. I turned. The woman who stepped into the living room was stunning in that way that felt weaponized. Dark hair pulled back severely, blood-red lips, a black dress that probably cost what I made in 3 months. Her eyes, sharp, assessing, swept over me like she was calculating my net worth and finding it lacking. "So you're the coffee shop girl." Her voice was smooth, cold. "I'm Addison Duarte, Alexander's associate." The pause before associate felt intentional. "Brook McClellan." I set my mug down. Alexander didn't mention expecting anyone. Alexander doesn't mention a lot of things. She moved to the bar, poured herself something amber from a crystal decanter. He's good at keeping secrets, compartmentalizing. It's how he survives. "You here to warn me off?" Addison laughed. Actually laughed. "Warn you? Honey, I'm here to satisfy my curiosity. Alexander Stoll doesn't bring civilians into his home. Ever. Not after Haley." The name landed like a slap. "He told you about her," Addison continued, watching me over the rim of her glass. "Interesting. He must really trust you, or really feel guilty." "What do you want?" "To understand what makes you different." She circled me slowly, predator assessing prey. "You're not his usual type, not polished enough, not connected enough, and yet here you are, living in his sanctuary while men who want him dead are circling. I didn't ask for this." "No one ever does." She stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive and suffocating. "But you're here now, which means you're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. I haven't decided which. Maybe I'm just someone who helped a man who needed it. There's no just in Alexander's world. Everything costs something." Addison's eyes narrowed. "The question is, what are you willing to pay? Because the people coming for him won't stop at property damage. They'll destroy everything he cares about. Everyone." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I like Alexander, and I'm tired of watching him lose people." She finished her drink, set the glass down with a sharp click. "So here's my advice. If you can't handle what's coming, leave now. Walk away while you still can. But if you stay—" Her smile was sharp enough to cut. "Then stop playing the victim and figure out how to be useful." The elevator chimed again. Addison moved toward it, paused at the threshold. "Oh, and Brook? Alexander's inner circle is smaller than you think. And not everyone in it wants what's best for him. Watch who you trust." Then she was gone. I stood there, heart pounding, wondering if that was a warning or a threat, and which terrified me more. The gala was Alexander's idea of maintaining appearances. Apparently, when people are trying to kill you, the best strategy is to show up at a black tie fundraiser and pretend everything's fine. Smile for cameras, shake hands with the same vultures circling your empire. "You don't have to come," Alexander had said that morning, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "If I'm stuck in this tower, I'm at least getting a free dinner out of it." That earned me almost a smile. Almost. Now, standing in a borrowed dress that Catherine Ham had sent over, midnight blue, fitted in ways that made me feel like an imposter. I was regretting everything. The ballroom glittered, champagne flowed. Everyone looked like they'd been born in formal wear, while I felt like a kid playing dress-up. Alexander's hand rested on the small of my back. "Protective. Possessive. That's Malik," he murmured, nodding toward a tall black man with silver at his temples. "My COO, he's solid." "And her?" I gestured to a striking woman with dark skin and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Emerald Cochran, board member, brilliant, ambitious, and probably plotting my downfall on Tuesdays. Probably. She's too smart to make it obvious. Then I saw them. 3 men across the room, holding court like they owned the place. The tall one from my coffee shop was in the center, flanked by 2 others who radiated the same predatory energy. "That's them," I whispered. Alexander's hand tightened on my back. "Alonzo, Rolando, and Kane. They wouldn't miss this. Too much opportunity to undermine me publicly. They're staring. Let them." Alonzo broke from the group, walking straight toward us. Rolando and Kane followed like wolves. "Alexander." Alonzo's smile was all teeth. "Good to see you upright. We heard about your accident. Tragic." "I'm resilient." Alexander's voice was ice. "Clearly." Alonzo's eyes slid to me. "And who's this? I don't believe we've been properly introduced." "Brook McClellan," I said before Alexander could answer. "Coffee shop owner." "Ah, the coffee shop." Rolando leaned in, his cologne overwhelming. "Charming little place. We stopped by, didn't we, Kane?" Kane's smile was dead behind the eyes. "Excellent coffee, though the security seemed excessive." "Can't be too careful these days," I said evenly. "Lot of dangerous people out there. If you're hooked on this story of power, betrayal, and a woman who refuses to be a pawn, hit subscribe. Things are about to get bloody." Alonzo laughed. "I like her, Alexander. She's got spine. Let's hope it doesn't get her killed." "Is that a threat?" Alexander's voice dropped to something lethal. "A warning. Your world has a way of consuming people who don't belong." Alonzo's eyes locked on mine. "Especially the ones you care about. How's Haley these days? Oh, wait." Alexander moved so fast I barely saw it. His hand clamped around Alonzo's wrist, gripped tight enough to whiten knuckles. "Careful," Alexander said quietly. "We're in public." "For now." Alonzo pulled free, straightened his cuff. "Enjoy the evening, both of you." They walked away, leaving us standing in the center of a ballroom that suddenly felt like a battlefield. Alexander's jaw was rigid. "We're leaving." "No." I grabbed his arm. "We stay. We don't let them see you run." His eyes met mine, storm gray and furious. "Brook!" "We stay." So we did. And I spent the rest of the night smiling while 3 men across the room planned our deaths. The call came at 3 a.m. I woke to Alexander's voice in the hallway. Low, urgent, the kind of tone that turns your blood cold. I grabbed my robe, found him standing at the window with his phone pressed to his ear, every muscle in his body coiled tight. "How many?" Pause. "Get him to the hospital, now." He ended the call, didn't turn around. "Alexander?" "They hit one of my warehouses. DeMarco, one of Marshall's men, was on patrol. They ambushed him." His reflection in the window looked carved from stone. "He's alive, barely." My stomach dropped. "Alonzo?" His signature all over it, coordinated, professional, a message. He finally turned, and his eyes were empty in a way that scared me more than anger would have. "They're escalating. What are you going to do?" "What I should have done weeks ago." He moved to his desk, opened his laptop. "Malik's been building a case. Financial records, email trails, shell companies, everything connecting Alonzo, Rolando, and Kane to the Sabotage. We were waiting for the right moment. And now? Now I burn them to the ground." The next 72 hours were a blur. Alexander barely slept. His penthouse became a war room. Malik, Marshall, Catherine, and a lawyer named Quinton cycling through with documents, strategies, contingency plans. I stayed out of the way mostly, bringing coffee, listening to fragments of conversations about forensic accountants and federal investigations. But on the second night, I found something. I was using Alexander's laptop to check my shop's security feeds when I noticed a folder labeled QFU Financials Draft. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside were projections, deal structures, investor lists, and one name that appeared in places it shouldn't: Quinton. My chest tightened. I scrolled deeper, found emails dated weeks before the sabotage, communications between Quinton and an offshore account linked to Alonzo. Oh God. I found Marshall first, showed him everything. His face went hard. Don't tell anyone else. Not yet. But Alexander, trust Quinton completely. If we're wrong, we destroy that relationship. If we're right, Marshall's jaw clenched. We need proof, real proof. We got it 6 hours later. Quinton arrived for a meeting. Marshall had bugged the conference room. We listened as Quinton took a call. His voice casual. Tomorrow night. Stoll's moving the evidence to the federal building. That's your window. Alexander heard it too. I watched something break behind his eyes. He walked into the conference room. Quinton looked up, smiling. Quinton, Alexander said quietly. How long? The smile faltered. What? How long have you been working with them? Quinton ran. Marshall's men caught him before he reached the elevator. That night, Alexander dismantled everything, called the FBI, released the evidence publicly, exposed Alonzo's embezzlement, Rolando's money laundering, Kane's fraud, Quinton's betrayal. By sunrise, federal agents were making arrests. By noon, Alexander's enemies were destroyed. And I watched him stand at that window, victorious and hollowed out, mourning the friend who'd betrayed him. It's over, I said softly. No. He turned to me, and for the first time in days, he looked almost human. Now it begins. 3 months later, my coffee shop looked like a different place. New windows, bulletproof, courtesy of Alexander's investments. Expanded seating. Equipment that actually worked. A line out the door most mornings because word had spread. Best coffee in Chicago. And if you were lucky, you might spot the billionaire who'd taken down 3 of the city's most corrupt executives. I'd insisted on keeping ownership. Alexander hadn't argued. Just smiled that almost smile and said, I wouldn't expect anything less. Marshall's men were gone now. Alonzo, Rolando, and Kane were awaiting trial on charges that would keep them locked up for decades. Quinton had taken a plea deal, testimony in exchange for a lighter sentence. The betrayal still sat heavy in Alexander's eyes some days, but he was healing. Slowly. We were healing. You're staring, I said without looking up from the espresso machine. Alexander sat at our table, the one by the window where this whole thing had started. His table now. He came every morning before heading to his office, sat with his laptop and his black coffee, and pretended he wasn't watching me work. I'm appreciating, he corrected. Appreciating what? My expert milk steaming technique? Your refusal to let my world change who you are. I looked up then. He was watching me with an expression that still made my breath catch. Open, vulnerable, real in ways he never was with anyone else. Your world tried pretty hard, I said lightly, and you told it to go to hell. He closed his laptop. Brook, come here. Something in his voice made my pulse stutter. I wiped my hands on my apron, walked over. He stood, took my hand, and I realized every customer in the shop was suddenly very interested in their phones. What are you? I'm a man who plans everything, Alexander said quietly. Every move calculated, every risk assessed. But you, he shook his head, you were the variable I never saw coming. The one thing I couldn't predict or control or fit into any strategy. Alexander, I've spent my entire life building empires. accumulating power, winning wars. His thumb traced circles on my palm. And none of it meant anything until the night I collapsed at your door and you didn't hesitate. Didn't ask what I could give you, just saw someone who needed help and gave it. My throat tightened. You saved my life, Brook. And then you refused to let me repay you like a transaction. You demanded I see you as an equal. You stood up to men who terrify experienced operators. You found the betrayal I was too blind to see. His other hand came up, cupped my face. You made me remember what it feels like to trust someone completely. Where is this going? I whispered. He smiled, really smiled. Then he dropped to one knee. The coffee shop went dead silent. I'm not good at this, he said, pulling a small black box from his pocket. I've rehearsed this 17 times, and I still don't have the right words. But here's what I know. I want every morning at this table. Every argument about whether you need security. Every moment you look at me like I'm not a billionaire or a target or a weapon, just a man you chose to save. He opened the box. The ring inside caught the light. Simple, elegant, a single diamond that somehow felt exactly right. Brook McClellan, will you marry me? I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the roaring in my ears and the way my heart was trying to break through my ribs. Yes, I said. Yes. He stood, slid the ring onto my finger, and kissed me while the entire coffee shop erupted in applause. I love you, he murmured against my lips. I love you too, even when you're dramatic. I'm never dramatic. You proposed in my coffee shop during rush hour. I proposed in the place where you saved my life. There's a difference. I laughed, and it felt like something unlocking in my chest. Like maybe, finally, we'd found something that looked like peace. Marshall appeared at the door then. His expression was carefully neutral, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. Sir, he said quietly, we have a situation. Alexander's hand tightened on mine. What kind of situation? Surveillance picked up movement. Someone's been watching the shop. Running facial recognition now, but Marshall's jaw clenched. The pattern matches Alonzo's old security detail. My blood went cold. He's in custody. He is. Marshall's eyes were dark. But he has a brother, Sahil Ramirez, and according to our sources, he paused. He just landed in Chicago. Alexander's expression went lethal. He turned to me, and in his eyes I saw the same storm I'd seen that first night. Protection, fury, love sharp enough to cut. Then it's not over, I said softly. No. His hand gripped mine tighter. It's just beginning. Outside, snow started falling again. And somewhere in the city, someone was watching, waiting. That's how saving a billionaire rewrote my entire life. From a simple act of kindness to a love that came with enemies, power, and questions that still keep me up at night. Want more stories where one choice changes everything? Let me know. Because this is only the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe for more intriguing stories.